All right, so you think these microphones will pick us up here, Rock? Because we're live right now.
See, he's deep.
Because we don't need no damn intro. We don't need no damn intro.
Y'all let us know if these microphones sound like they're working here.
All right, so yeah, anybody out there?
3 weeks ago.
A beautiful Saturday. You know, yesterday was April Fool's Day, so we thought we'd bring you the 3 April Fools. My name is Ted Nugent full time. There's not a damn thing you can do about it. And this is the Ted Nugent Spirit Campfire, and this is John Wayne Walding right here.
Testing.
All-American shit kicker. And this is Greg Stubbe, All-American shit kicker. And if you people wonder why I've got attitude and a tsunami and an unlimited arsenal of piss and vinegar and positive spirit, it's because I get to hang out with bad mofos. Now, what is going on with my silver? What is this? Do I have wings? What is going on here?
Some would call that wisdom.
I sponge wisdom.
A whole lot of wisdom today.
So this is just an easygoing, unofficially, official, non-official, shit kicker, bullshit session, truth, logic, and common sense, addiction, and celebration, and we share it because we know that everybody out there, well, not everybody, obviously, but 90% of the people that, maybe 98% of the people that come to the Ted Nugent Spirit Campfire are celebrants of the real American dream, being the best that you can be, truth, logic, common sense. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights, 10 Commandments, the Golden Rule, the Declaration of Independence, that samurai man in the arena, the great white buffalo that doesn't avoid storms. We like storms. We're looking for a storm. So we're going to create a storm of positive spirit, attitude, and energy here. Greg Stubbe, tell it. Oh, I got to do this backwards. Greg Stubbe, tell me where you're from and what you're doing and how you became a Green Beret and why you're hanging out here at the Nugent Ranch on a Spirit Campfire bullshit session.
Me becoming a Green Beret is a pretty ironic thing. I don't know how I did it. I showed up with Similac on my breath, knocking on an
Just
aquarium.
Just a child.
Yeah, knocking on an aquarium full of sharks, asking if I can get in and swim with them. And then
you're from Detroit, then? Actually, Long Beach, California.
Well, I was born there. My dad was in the Navy, so I didn't stay there long. I moved around my whole life, and then 23 years in the Army. Kept moving around, and I'm still moving around, and that brought me here.
Yeah, and there was a time where you faced the very real danger of not being able to move around. Give us a brief rundown of that moment on the hill where you had to pack your own guts back in, and you barely survived. Because we always celebrate here at the Nugent Campfire, both literally and figuratively, and at the feed mill and at the hardware store, that freedom ain't free. And John and Greg represent a huge swath of America who decided they would head into the storm. They didn't avoid the storm, and by taking on the storm, they provided this American dream. And we'll get into the heartbreak of where it's going these days. But explain why it's a miracle that you're here today. That moment on that hill.
I had a hard day at the office.
A hard day.
And it seems like everything...
Out of coffee again, right? Those days are just the hardest.
Now, that was Afghanistan or Iraq?
Afghanistan. Yep. This was Operation Medusa, the largest NATO offensive since the Normandy invasion.
Really?
Yep.
How many guys?
Well, there were NATO forces in the thousands, but there were only 3 A-teams ran up the middle to flush out the Taliban to get squashed by larger forces.
That was the Green Berets.
Right. So I had 2 things working against me going into that. The first was that it was the end of my career. This would have been my last mission before retirement.
I hear that scenario unfold a lot, where you'd go one more time and it's almost the end.
Yeah, and so...
Mine was the last 2, by the way.
Yep, see? I hear
not of my career, well, ultimately of my career, but it was the last of the
what
deployment.
What do you call that? A command or taking the hill? If I take this hill, I can go home.
Right.
Yeah, but it created I wasn't complacent. You know, I think I was...
You're a Green Beret. You're not. You had your complacency amputated in boot camp, didn't you? Isn't that one of the first things they do? No more complacency?
But I think because...
That's what you do.
Well, the first thing they tell us is don't be a SEAL, right? They cut out the creative writing at the end of the Q course.
But it's so true, though. Look, if we're being honest, John.
Yeah.
And I know all of you were hoping for a Green Beret today. I'm sorry. it's true that the SEALs can do things
Great guys.
that Green Berets can't. They don't
Like what?
They don't teach us how to make movies, Ted.
That's very difficult. You've been in it. You know the production value. It don't happen overnight.
That's so cruel of you.
But I look,
Should I call Marcus Luttrell right now? Or?
But I was a dive medical technician. I was involved in scuba operations, and I worked with SEALs through my whole career. And
And could rely on them.
oh, I love them. I do.
They are. They're
I
great.
do. It's always a fresh and innovative mindset. They seem more modern and dynamic sometimes. You know.
It was always like this.
No.
It's like I tease my fellow musicians if they've plummeted into the world of country music. And, I make sure I play my killer licks a little louder just to remind them what they could have done.
I will fight you, Ted. You bash on country music every time I see you.
George Strait's the
Because
king.
it's so easy.
George is the king.
It's so easy, and I love them all. And the real tough country guys, because country music, it's called country. It used to be called country and western. Well, I thought if it was country, it'd probably be like ranching, farming, pretty tough guys, pretty thick-skinned, but not so much. Based on the pierced nipple in the industry,
You know, it's funny you said that because I, through my, and we'll get to me later, but one of my blessings after, my injury is I had a race named after me. You know, I had the John Wayne 400 brick.
No kid.
But you want to know what America
NASCAR.
is? NASCAR.
No kid.
Oh,
Those are country fans. But they're country fans because their favorite song is Stranglehold.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. But they announced I was winning at the Country Music Awards, at the CMT Awards.
Right.
And so I went there in Nashville, country music.
Sure. Great people.
And I kid you not, there were more country music artists wearing freaking skinny jeans than cowboy hats.
Yeah, I know it.
Yep.
There was only one guy there with a cowboy hat, and that was Alan Jackson. Blew my mind to where, because I didn't,
And I know these guys, the biggest names in country. Toby Keith, he's the real McCoy. Blake Shelton, he's the real McCoy. John and Rich, the real McCoy. And their bands, by the way, qualify as outright rhythm and blues grinders, the rock and roll grinders. I've been able to play Stranglehold with Toby Keith's band. I played Stranglehold and Cat Scratch Fever and Johnny B. Good with Big and Rich. I've got up on stage with Tim Montana, who fancies himself rock and roll country. But these musicians, as we tease the SEALs, we know that they are true warriors, and we tease them.
Hands down.
And these musicians, I tease country guys, but their work ethic, their creativity, their musical prowess is tops of the top. So when I tease country music, it's for the enjoyment of the people who are next to a country fan whose feelings get hurt, because that's my only goal, is to hurt their feelings and to try to get them to man up. So long story short, because we could be here for 100 days, but you were on a mission, and I understand you were taking heavy incoming rounds, and you were making a move, and you got your guts blown up.
Yeah, we were surrounded by over 1,000 Taliban.
1,000.
Three A teams, and we had run out of ammunition 4 times.
That's I've
So
never
it
run
had
out
to
of
be airdropped ammo. You know, what does a Green Beret want when he's running out of ammo and surrounded by 1,000 Taliban?
more ammo.
First, he wants his mommy. Once you can get over,
We're human.
once
Ted.
you can get over all that human stuff, then you can begin to.
So
to do
you
other
were
things.
so as a young American man, you were at the depth of fearful emotion.
It was for sure.
So you're a warrior, and you have to function accordingly. But the struggle is to go from the fear to your job.
And the other element is that I was a medic, and so I spent a career watching bad things happen to other people, and I was the one to fix those things.
Right.
And so it had totally escaped me that it could possibly be me.
And having dealt with the trauma of your fellow warriors' serious, many times terminal injuries,
Yes.
does that create calluses on your emotions? So, because I'm not a warrior, I'm not a Green Beret, but I've saved 2 people's lives from traumatic injuries where I didn't feel sorry about the blood and the guts. I just ripped my shirt off and stopped the blood and guts. You go into improvise, adapt, and overcome. There's something to be done here. To hell with your emotions. Did you get to that point?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's, in multi-system trauma, when there's a lot of things wrong with someone, we tend to go to what looks bad, the blood, because that's where our emotion
That's where your
lives.
job is, yeah.
That's what looks bad, but it's not necessarily what's killing them. And so you have to have a drive and a focus that goes beyond the emotion and digs into what the real issues are.
I understand that. So
well, I just want to butt in because it's
you're
not that
butting in.
hard to be a special forces medic, right? The only thing you have to do is blood goes in or around and around, air goes in and out. That's all you got to do.
So it's mechanical.
That's it.
And really, it's no big deal.
And by the way, and I don't mean to
I'm
keep
kidding,
interrupting,
yeah.
but I'm fascinated to be around you guys because I never served in the military. I've always been militant. I've always supported the military as much as any human being that has ever walked.
Right.
Because I've got to know the guys back after World War II. I've spent campfires with survivors of the Bataan Death March, so I could get real teary-eyed real quick for you guys. And I've heard the pain and suffering, not just because of bullet wounds, but because of spiritual wounds.
Yes.
And we'll get into that in a minute. But you almost died,
Yes.
and you had to strap your destroyed leg to your torso and keep fighting. You had shared with me in a campfire setting that you had saved other fellow military warriors from guts astrew, akimbo, and bones sticking out. But when it happened to you, did you take care of yourself?
I tried, but I was limited in what I could do. I knew I'd seen wounds like this before, but they were on dead people. And I was afraid of going unconscious. So I was keeping my mind busy. I was physically counting my own fingers. I was looking at details on people's faces, listening to the words they would say, trying hard not to go unconscious.
And meanwhile, rounds are coming.
They were. And when my teammates, when they got to me, I remember trying to, and there were after-action reviews where they all wrote sworn statements. I was trying to guide them through the steps it would take to save my life. Now, keep in mind, it was also a really bad moment for me because I'd been very selfish. I should have been, for a long time, in the business of putting myself out of business. I didn't give my time to my teammates when they asked me for cross-training. Some of my teammates had watched buddies die and then found out later they could have saved them if they knew.
I see what you mean.
And if it was beer 30, I left. If it was a weekend, I didn't have time.
Well, but were you compartmentalizing? Because Dirty Harry, the greatest philosopher of all times, and it's true, a good man has to know his limitations. So you've got to get away from it. So, all right, so there's a job description where you could have trained the non-medics to be at least capable of saving a life. But at some point, like I fight the Marxists and the commies and the liberals and the Democrats and the oath violators every day. And maybe I could have done more, but I go, my God, this is traumatic in its own way. I got to go climb a tree, and I've got to abandon the front lines to make sure I'm strong. Does that resonate with you guys that you can fight and fight and fight, but you could fight to the point where you get so overwhelmed that you're not as good a fighter as you could have been if you would have retreated to fortify?
As a leader, as a human being, and John, you said it best last night, self-care is not selfish. It's necessary.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
To answer your question directly, did we know? We do now. We didn't
But
know
did you
back
then?
then that decompression
Were you too young?
was. I don't necessarily think that the age or maturity level is just a mission focus. I think we were just
Too
so
trained, maybe?
lasered. No, it's not a lack of training. It's a lack of focus. Okay. Right? We are focused on mission first. We are focused on the guys to our left and right. We are focused on being, the most lethal fighting force on the planet.
And they have to kick your ass,
Right.
and boot camp will weed out anybody that isn't an absolute samurai.
Right.
But have your commanders, have your bosses, superiors, ever alluded to taking care of yourself? Or is it all just go, 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 swim, 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 run, run, run? Have they ever, as a good leader, say, all right, we've swam, we've run, we fire, we test ourselves. Now have a nice weekend. Did they go there?
But be here on Monday, right?
I think for us it was more about maintaining the standards.
Right.
When that was brought up, it was take care of your families. Because you can't have issues popping up.
Which is another, with all a burden we relish,
Yes.
but it is another
weight
burden
on the shoulders.
So
right?
self, I've always said, I love me.
Yeah.
I want me to be as strong and healthy as possible if Shemaine needs me.
Right.
If I wear myself out hunting all the time and she might need me, I might be slow, whether there's an intruder or a flat tire or an emotional moment. Every few moments. So as a military guy, to be a warrior, you've got to be as tough ass as possible. But
it's not enough. That's not
said,
enough.
I thought of my mommy.
Yeah.
So those moments, they're as real as a heart attack, aren't they?
Yeah. 100%. You know, whenever I lost my leg, and which I didn't lose it, I had accountability. Right? I don't need a counseling statement, or I knew where it was, just didn't work at the moment. So
But you strapped it to your torso to keep fighting.
Yeah, so whenever I was shot, it was just hanging at a 45-degree angle by an inch of flesh, right? And so I'd literally, the redneck in me was like, "Wow, Spielberg got it right," because it looked just like the movies. When you guy gets his head chopped off, and it does there. But after the tourniquet was put on, I did grab my leg. I folded it up into my crotch, and I held it between my thighs, and
in hopes of saving it.
Yeah. Like Ricky Bobby, with my high income, advancing modern science, there's no reason to think they can't put it back, and...
Quote Ricky Bobby as often as possible.
I feel like I'm on a spaceship.
Eat love! All right.
Put it in milk.
But no, to your point about... I never will forget after, my injury, seeing my team sergeant getting shot is close for me to you.
Yeah.
My team sergeant, he's the man, right? The guy that you look for, he's... Chuck Norris wears Scott Ford underwear in my book. Like that's how, in my mind, my team sergeant was to me.
And he wasn't he?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to see him get shot and drop down, that's when I figured we were going to die. Right before Dylan got hit. All right, we can make it through it. Luis got hit. No, we can make it through it. Damn it, I'm hit. Now we can make it through it. When Scott's hit, that's when I realized, we're probably not getting off this mountain today.
So his injury was up here for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because it was so intimate. Not only was it once, but he got shot in the chest plate, dropped. Got back up within 5 minutes. I was, on my butt looking up at him and saw his left tricep get filleted off the back because he got shot through his shoulder. And going back to, do you think about that stuff? Well, absolutely you do. Then you start thinking, all right, God, here, the joke better get right with Jesus, right? And you do go through that checklist. I'm like, all right, here's my grandma.
And it's a flurry because again, you're taking incoming rounds. Your buddies,
but it doesn't feel that way.
It
doesn't
feel
like
out of
flurry.
body?
Yeah, it really is.
And that's due to training?
Well, and Ted, I know what it feels like to die. Think about that, right? Think about what you go through in a day. And at that moment, whenever I could literally feel, not figuratively, literally feel the life go away from me and say, you know what? To your point about staying awake, man, if I could just go to sleep, it'd be over with, right?
It's a place of comfort.
Oh, yeah.
It's calling you.
It wasn't scary.
It's sirens wanting you to come towards
it.
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't scary. It was comforting. Man, just stop fighting. It'll be all right. Stop fighting. It'll be all right. And
I don't have to fight anymore now.
Right.
But that was a nanosecond, and then your training and your patriotism and your will to live overpowered the desire for comfort. I'm gonna
absolutely. That deliberate discomfort that we put ourselves through in training, that deliberate discomfort that we put ourselves, at home and getting to where we are. The way I phrase it, you just go back to work, right?
In the heat of battle.
In the head of battle, you just go back to work, right?
Back to work.
So the things we're talking about, it's a conversation about resilience.
Not just on the battlefield, but in the battlefield of life.
So this has been about survival in the moment, but it's making me think a lot more about resilience. And a lot can be said about you, but you're resilient. You're like a cockroach. Okay?
I am the middle finger. I just have legs.
So, and I think the survival has a lot more to do with how you deal with your own emotions. Do you take the time to put them in the right places and tell yourself the truth about it? And that's when you go into the tree stand.
Yes.
And that's what you're doing. You dealt with the blood and guts.
Right.
You saved somebody. It was hard on you. Another person might sit in a corner and break. But you get out, you spend the self-care time.
And that is prayer.
Yeah.
Prayer isn't just words. I think the most powerful prayers is conduct. If you're positive and you really care about not just the people around you, but people you randomly encounter. Right. I'm a smiling, waving, how you doing guy.
Yep.
Open door guy, helping people with groceries. I see a bass boat in the parking lot while Shemaine's shopping. I make sure I hang around to talk bass fishing with the guy when he comes out. And it happens to be a family, and it's like a Ted Nugent party all of a sudden.
Well, it's not just it's an attitude.
Certainly,
right? It's that attitude of gratitude.
I think resilience comes from intimacy. If you're intimate enough with people to be honest with them and confess your limitations, then you don't have to hide anything when it hurts after the fact.
Right.
But we got guys who are so afraid of crying in front of someone else that they'll lock themselves in a dark room and commit suicide.
Right.
Instead of dealing with it.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because so you guys saw death, you were prepared for it, but you found that resilience, not just from your training, because I haven't been trained.
Not from training at all, because the shortcoming to me was that we're trained to believe that we can achieve victory and maintain it through life through technical and tactical proficiency alone.
Right.
Win the day. That's not enough, because your hard items come off that battlefield in the same shape, but your heart and your mind are never in the same shape again.
So what's happening to the guys committing suicide? They've obviously given up. Can you give me a list of why?
Well, Ted, I always try to let people understand. You keep saying compartmentalize because that's something we have to do. Not only is that something we have to do, but that we believe in its fact, its value. Right? Not addressing these is value to my team, because if I address them right now, I'm going to be a detriment to my team. So you have these guys that have years and years and years of, I'm just putting this over here. Why? Because this is a good thing to do. Right? It's a good thing to put these over here and look forward over here. And now they're back. And they don't know how to deal with this. It's that door's just coming open whether they want to or not.
Where do I put it?
Where do I put it? I can't go to my guy and say this, because why? That's not the value. Value to my guy is putting my crap over here and then going doing bad things to bad people, right? But now we're not in Afghanistan. We're not in Iraq. We're not in Syria. We're at Fort Bragg. We're at Fort Campbell. We're at home. And that culture is not inside of us at the moment, right? When you're in the team, the things that he and I are talking about, we've been out for a while, and this has been a journey for me to get to this point, right? To have that vulnerability with myself to say, hey, I'm not okay. And not only am I not okay, but who am I going to look to get better, and have that, conversation.
How long were you out of commission, being repaired, healing? How long?
So, still going.
I know.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
but I mean,
still going,
before
but
you could leave the hospital.
Yeah. So I got shot in April of 2008, and within probably 6 to 8 months, I was back at Bragg.
Okay, and you, Greg?
It was 18 months before I was returned.
Okay, and I love I love you guys.
About like a dog loves doo-doo, right?
Yeah, my dogs. That's all.
You ever seen a dog walk past it without stopping?
No, neither do I. So I'm comfortable. I'm unafraid of anything.
Right.
Did you ever think about it?
Suicide?
Yep.
No, never. Good. I got so low that I didn't feel value, but not to the point to where my life had no value. Does that make sense?
Did you ever think about it? And do you mind me asking?
No, I don't mind at all. I'm like John. I actually never considered killing myself, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't want it to end.
Right. The pain.
Yeah.
So
I would have been happy.
So
if it stopped.
So everybody says we're all created equally. Some guys will face that moment. You guys went, all right, motherfuckers. There's hunting season ahead. I got to take care of my family. God's given me another day. I'm not giving him the finger, and I'm going to live this day. It's going to be tough. It hurts, but you saw positive goals. What happens to the guys? And I'm going to tell you what I think happens. I think substance abuse, particularly drug abuse, I think that's why the guy killed Kyle. I think
1,000%. I know everything about that, and that had nothing to do with post-traumatic stress and everything to do about addiction.
Getting high.
Absolutely.
your brain's burned.
Absolutely.
Your brain gets worse, gets less capable
In
every
the
time.
interview, the guy said, I needed to take their souls before they took mine. Never once has somebody that suffered
out of
from
his
post-traumatic stress said
Yeah,
that.
nothing to. So, in your experience with surrounded by warriors and shit kickers at a deer camp or the barbecue, and it's just so rhetorical because we're not all equal. Some people will see an accident and they'll sit there and scream and what do we do? Meanwhile, we dive in and go, well, there's a broken leg. I'm going to wrap that son of a bitch.
Right.
This guy's about to burn to death. I'm going to drag. In your experience in the military discipline, what do you think is the difference between a guy who goes, my God, this guy needs to be dragged out of a burning vehicle versus the guy that stands there and screams hysterically?
The only difference that I could say is God, right? There's just God has the plan. You know, whenever I lost my leg, I had the why me's a lot, right? Why me, God?
Did you?
Why'd you do this for me, right? I'm a good guy, right? I don't beat my kids. Why? You know, I pay my bills. Why me? You know, and we forget because of our arrogance and capability that it's not our life, right? This isn't our plan. This is God's plan. And what I've learned with my faith in God, that one, God is real. God loves me. And God's the reason why we're here. And that galvanized faith has taught me that it's not my job to wonder why. It's my job to do the best I can on his plan. So it's changed the whys to the what's the lesson. Right?
So your instinct, either you're respectful and responsive to your instincts, or somewhere along the line you lose touch with that, because that God gave us that. I mean,
Right.
This book, Native American Spiritual Elders, the most powerful statement in there is God gave us everything we need. We already have everything we need. What is, especially in 2022, people have turned that switch completely off. They're whining and hurt feelings for the most petty, stupid things. Right. But how old are you, Greg?
52.
52, John?
I'm 40.
My goodness, it's like a romper room. It's like I'm the nanny here.
More milk, Paul.
But in your short lives, maybe I should be answering this. But in your, and I do have some answers.
I got some hard miles on this motor.
Yeah,
but these ain't highway miles.
Off-road miles. Yeah, no, not the road less traveled. No road that anybody's ever been on before. That's my goal. So in your experience, is without substance abuse, without brain trauma, without an injury, what is the core difference between a guy who heads into the storm versus a guy who complains there's a storm? You know what I'm saying? That
same
makes
thing, and you're making a correlation between performance on the battlefield and survival after the
I
battlefield.
think it's equally as powerful. I'm not diminishing the bullets coming into you,
Right.
but life is it's a non-stop barrage of enemy fire, isn't it?
Right. So I think it's
And for the viewers here right now, because a lot of people are very fearful right now, and they're not on a battlefield taking incoming rounds, but life right now, life is a treacherous battlefield. So with Greg and John here today, and a goofy guitar player, I think the wisdom from these guys, and quite apparent on the Spirit Campfire, because I'm a humble servant of God's truth, logic, and common sense, and unlimited evidence to support my confidence in that truth, logic, and common sense. As we're talking to people out there, I don't know how many, because I'm so suppressed, because they got fact checkers that are just born liars, just nasty people. Truth, logic, and common sense is kryptonite to a segment of our humanity these days. So I think what Greg and John and I can convey most importantly right now is be strong. Find that instinct to survive and to thrive, to flourish in the heat of political indecency, law and order abandonment, the orchestration of the invasion by our own commander-in-chief, the importation of deadly chemical warfare in the form of fentanyl meth that is orchestrated by the government of the United States of America, on those mountains and hillsides with your buddies getting blown up and your bodies being blown to smithereens, was that worse, or is the current horror of abuse of power worse?
Well, definitely, the abuse of power is worse, right? Because our pain is just isolated just to us.
Medicines
Right.
medical treatment can fix you.
But what's
what
happening
can
now
fix this?
People,
And am I overstating this?
No, you're not overstating it. You know?
Because people are hurting.
Well, the same thing it takes to be resilient and drive on through these kinds of adversity. And John's right. I think it does begin with faith. Because if you're not able to believe in a higher power and your creator, then maybe you're not serving a virtuous thing. Maybe it's...
I use the term humble servant.
Right, humble servant.
But I think it goes farther, and this is more of a simple John Wayne kind of thing, if you will.
Come on, let me hear it, baby.
Okay. So it takes honor and courage to raise your right hand.
But where
and
do you
swear
get
in,
that?
right?
Where do you get that if your parents didn't discipline you?
So listen, I've seen people come off the street, especially after 9/11, these punk teenage kids that I thought had no hope for the future.
Join the Navy.
But you know what? They love their country just as much as we do. They're just as courageous as we were. I joined the Army because I saw a movie called Rambo. And they joined at a time where if you turned on the TV, there was pictures of dead people that made the same choice last month.
Right.
And so
Even the worst of society, there is a great person there. Like I've always said,
I agree.
When I make fun of hippies because they're funny, and I make fun of liberals because they're stupid, but I have hippie friends and I have liberal friends, and I'm a loving guy to them. And I believe that if a dangerous condition occurred, most of them would respond as we would.
Yeah. Well, I think people need to realize a few things. One, it's a mindset and a daily decision that you must make, right? So what can you do? Well, every morning when you wake up, you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm not going to be good, but I'm going to be great today.
Amen.
Right? Because
I said that about if you're a good bass player, you can't be in my band. You got to be a stone cold
right,
mother.
you have to be great. And how many people out there really do that every morning?
I
right?
think a lot.
Right.
But because there's so many people in the world, there's an awful lot that don't.
Right. But also, great doesn't mean comfort. Great doesn't mean, easy. Great doesn't mean that you're not going to have adversity. You've got to, when those proverbial Mike Tyson punches in the face happen like they're happening right now, you lean forward and you fight hard, right? You don't just stick your boo-boo lip out and say, oh, life sucks. Guess what? Life sucks for everybody.
Yeah.
It sucks if you're rich, sucks if you're poor. Sucks if you're one-legged, sucks if you're two-legged, right? It sucks if you're white, if you're black, and so let me finish my thought real quick. So when you understand that everyone has their own adversity they have to go through. Everybody has their own demons. Everybody has this. So stop blaming them, right? And look at yourself and say, how am I going to be better today, right? And I think fundamentally that's where it starts, right? It starts with that.
The great white buffalo. There's going to be a storm in varying degrees of danger today.
Right.
Every day.
So face the storm.
Face the storm. Enjoy the challenge, because there is a lull if you face the challenge aggressively, being the best that you can be. And if you're hurting, you can fix yourself.
Absolutely. Well, like with me, I lost my leg, in 2008. That sucks. Today, all the way through then, right? My leg didn't grow back, and so therefore I don't have hard days anymore. I had hard days this morning.
Sure.
And
at my age, I did too.
So you have to choose to have that pain and don't run from it, right? You have to choose to when you look at yourself in the mirror that this is going to be a tough day, but I'm worth it, right? Because that's one of the things that you got to answer that question: is this worth it? Is what we're doing worth it?
Resilience and faith.
So everything we're talking about is the approach to the challenge, but I want to talk about what happens after the big challenge comes, because there's dark days there.
Yeah.
And during those times, that's when the honor that it takes to raise your right hand in the first place. Like, here's an example. When I raised my right hand to swear into the military and serve and fight and possibly die for my country, I knew that untold thousands had already died doing that.
Yep.
And so now I'm the one that gets wounded. Now, that's the moment of truth. Am I going to be a hypocrite and act like a victim now, like I didn't know it could happen to me, like I didn't realize I was walking right into it. No, we all have to make the choice to have the staying power to acknowledge that sacrifice is a part of serving anything greater than yourself. So if we can maintain that virtue after the bad stuff happens.
And during.
And I think the people that spiral downward, that don't make it, they go to relying on drugs. They start blaming everything for what happened, and they forget the reasons they served in the first place.
Right.
And then, instead of a volunteer, they become a victim. And instead of a warrior, they become wounded.
And they've identified themselves as a victim, and that makes you weaker by the minute if you're looking for excuses, because God gave us everything we need. You have it. Some people are getting frustrated and they're scared out there, and the price of gas and the price of food, and they're paid to stay home, and
And the price of ammo.
the price of ammo. Yeah, I'm not even selling mine. So these are really inspiring words from a couple of inspiring guys, and I dearly appreciate that, because people are hurting out there right now. And I know I get silly. I'm the master of silly and crazy and fun and defiance and uppity and middle fingers on fire. But I have my moments where I hurt. I have really bad back pain and neck and shoulder pain, and Shemaine's helping me through that. We're getting the old man to exercise and stretch more. I have my moments. I seem to be Mr. Indefatigable, Mr. Unstoppable, Mr. Middle Finger, riding a middle finger on fire into the not-so-distant future. I have my moments, and I have to call upon what Greg and John are saying here. And if a goofy guitar player from Detroit can do it, and I always reference that, because if the author of Wango Tango can improvise, adapt, overcome, and find positiveness, who can't? So your energy and your spirit, I'm so humbled and honored to call you blood brothers. There's a self-evident truth that made you raise your right hand and take that oath. I took that oath as a sheriff deputy 39 years ago, and I do it every 2 years.
Wow.
And I'm a husband, and I'm a father. I'm a neighbor. I'm a rancher. I'm an environmentalist. I'm a free man. And so everybody out there, find that piss and vinegar. You've got it. You might get depressed. You might let the hurt guide your thoughts. Fight the hurt. The great white buffalo, he sees a storm. And I mean it, the American buffalo is the only animal that when a blizzard comes, he doesn't turn away from it to look for shelter. The herd goes right into the storm. And just look at that buffalo, how he stands. He's just a bad dude, and they had the nasties. You've seen the footage where the horizontal snow is just blowing their hair back, and they put their head down and walk straight into the storm. We have that, don't we?
Yes.
You needed that day, didn't you?
I need it today.
And tomorrow.
Yes, yes.
Well, there's one thing that I want to talk about that we haven't brought up, and that's sobriety. You know, you ask these guys, you know, how are these guys doing it, and how do they get over it? You know, there's nothing, you can argue about whether, you know, you can handle your liquor. You can argue about it. Will forever
or
be
you
a
can lick your
depressant,
hand.
right?
I'll
alcohol's
never
a
forget.
depressant, you know, and the way I look at it is the military, they teach you how to deal death, but not how to deal with it. Right? So whenever you get that call that someone's dead, what do? You drink. Right? When you
I
get
don't.
That, right. Well, that's
But
what
people,
they do.
yes.
Right? You know, and, you know, one thing that's helped me so much, not only to get off alcohol, you know, but also those opioids that you're...
Did you, well, okay, 2 points.
Yeah.
When you were going through the real suffering, did you start drinking?
Absolutely. Well, I never stopped drinking.
I didn't drink. The extent of my burns and injuries had me on the strongest
Oh,
opioids.
so you were.
I was on fentanyl and Dilaudid and
Dilaudid, love Dilaudid.
yeah, it's powerful.
I was
right?
out at one time when I passed a 38 caliber stone.
I like it.
I chipped the ceiling. Pow! Ceiling tile came down, and they gave me some of that Dilaudid. And I was like Ozzy for about an hour and a half.
But for you were in perspective, right? Because you can say the term or whatever it is, right? And there's really no, you know, realistic. All right, what were they really on, right? The way I look at it is like, do you know what a Percocet is, right? everybody here has heard of a Percocet.
Sure, it's what
But you
Michael
don't-
Jackson overdosed.
Right.
on, I
Well,
think.
half of it. Well, so what's actually in a Percocet is 325 milligrams. You probably know this, medic guy. It's 320 of acetaminophen. That's Tylenol, and it's 5 milligrams of OxyContin. That's what he went over. That's the bad stuff, right? Well, they were prescribing me, and he can, 80 milligrams of straight oxy 3 times a day, right? On top of anti-psych meds, on top of anti-inflammatory, on top of anti, along with this other stuff. And so when we say we were zombies, like that, we were absolute numb zombies.
So you have to have
So that puts it into perspective,
the
right?
pain is overwhelming. You have to numb that down, and then I was getting off of them, and then I was commanded to be on them for physical therapy because you won't stretch and extend enough if the pain is overriding your senses. So
What was I on? Tramadol for my knee replacements?
Dilaudid, for sure. They had to ask you to leave because
I started
you liked
play-
it. The hospital, they're
I
like,
started
Mr.
playing
Nugent,
folk
you have
music.
to
I
leave.
mean, I was really gone. I strummed like Peter, Paul, and Mary. It was horrible. It was like sacrilege.
but you can feel it going.
God
in
was
your-
angry at me.
So duck hunting got me off drugs.
Duck hunting is awesome.
I went on a duck hunt. I did not tell my host that I was on opiates.
Oh boy!
I shouldn't have been handling a firearm.
Did you hit a duck?
I missed ducks. And listen, it was my ego.
That's the ultimate lesson. When you're high, you'll miss the ducks. Don't be high.
And so I'm thinking, man, word's going to get out that Green Berets can't shoot.
Yeah.
And
I always say Taliban don't fly.
and then I went back to camp. I went out the next day and I didn't take anything. And I started hitting ducks. And I went through
Pragmatism.
I went through an uncomfortable phase. I won't call it full withdrawals, but it was, my hair hurt. I needed the drug more than I needed pain relief.
Wow.
And I was uncomfortable, but I was shooting better and I was thinking better, and I just never
You
had gone
do
back.
everything better.
Yeah.
You'll never know what you're capable of if you're high or drunk. You'll never be what you can be.
You want to know what it was for me? When I was at the hospital, we had a 2-bedroom apartment afterwards, right? So, at the time I had 2 kids. I always joked that I had 2 kids before I was shot and 2 kids after I was shot. So suck that, Taliban. I don't die, I multiply.
There you go. Good for you.
But at the time, my son, my wife and daughter were at the grocery store, and it was just my son and I in the apartment, and my son was jumping off the coffee table. I was trying to make him paratrooper. I'm John Wayne. He's Sam Houston. I tried name
His name is Sam Houston.
It is Sam Houston. I tried to name him John Wayne Jr. Because he could have a John Wayne Jr.
You
that's
got a
how we do
Davy
it in our
Crockett?
family. But Mama wouldn't give me that. But anyway, I digress. But he didn't. I had my leg off at the time, and just recently injured. Was still on all that stuff that I was taking, and he actually falls.
How old was he?
He was about 3 years old. He actually turned 3 in the hospital, and I did like every father does, right? You stand up to go catch your son. I took a step and I didn't have a foot,
Didn't have your leg on.
right? And I landed on that stump and it started to bleed, and I was laying on the ground 4 inches away from his face, and we were both crying. I wasn't crying because of the pain. I was crying because
you were stupid?
No, because I was too doped up to catch him,
Oh.
right? That was that moment.
Oh, you
to
were
me.
still on the oxy and that
I was
stuff.
still on there. I saw it happen, and I knew that I didn't have that wherewithal to catch my son.
Situational awareness.
Right, and I knew that moment I had 2 choices, right? I could either choose pain, right, because it hurts.
Yeah.
Right? Fox
I
News
can
alert. It
only
sucks being
imagine.
one-legged, and so I can choose pain and be myself and be that protector, be that provider, be that presider of the family, or I can choose pills. Well, I chose pain that day, and forever it was been the best thing that I ever done.
turkey.
So going back to what are the
Cold
guys
turkey
doing?
or paternal
Oh,
instincts.
cold. It was just it, man. Nope, they're not going to suffer for what I've done, and that was one of the best things that's helped me because, like we were talking about, I have that addictive trait in me, right? That's why I'm a Green Beret, because I don't want to be good. I want to be great. Anything worth doing is worth overdoing, and I was doing the same thing with pills, right? Well, that takes no more than 3 a day. Well, I'll just take 6 and have a party, right? 3 is not for a Green Beret. 6 is for me, right? And so getting that clear head allowed me, to your point, face that storm.
Yeah.
Right, because you run from it, right? That's going back to the alcohol for a lot of guys. What do they live with that I hate the word because I'm just going to relax. No, you're running from what you're
Comfortably numb is actually uncomfortably dumb.
right, and so to all the people out there, if you're struggling, get sober. I'm not saying you got to be forever, but live inside your clear head for 6 months, right? Because it takes about 3 to really be that yourself.
And your happiness factor will be unprecedented. So the takeaway, resilience, great point in the beginning.
Yeah.
Faith, which gives you strength and resilience. And sobriety, so that you have all your faculties to apply the resilience and the faith.
Absolutely.
Hallelujah. And I'm just a guitar player.
I think I saw a bald eagle fly over.
Well, we call it the spirit campfire because the gift of life is the physics of spirituality. You have to, as a military warrior with all that boot camp discipline and physical, Bruce Lee aspirations. As a guitar player, I never did it in the military world, but I did it because I'm a bow hunter and I wanted to climb that mountain. Mm-hmm. And just as a guy that was gifted with athleticism and health because of my dad, who was a U.S. Army drill sergeant, cavalry in World War II in Korea, and he never stopped being a drill sergeant. So resilience, faith, sobriety, discipline. Face the damn storm. I know everybody's hurting out there. I know the conditions are ugly. Our government lies. The media lies. The fact checkers are the liars. The Hunter Biden laptop is real. Our president is a gangster. The Democrats are maniacally dedicated to destroy this country, and the Republicans have lost their balls in not standing up. I'm afraid, as all the positive we exude here today, that the conditions we're living in are as ugly as they have ever been, because this is America. We're not Germany.
Right.
We're not Spain. We're not England.
Right.
This is an experiment in self-government. So to be the best self you can be, it demands resilience. You can't give up. No matter how ugly and stupid the world is, get that middle finger and exercise it. Challenge the people who think they have authority. Be a critical thinker. Remember that we serve God. He gave us this gift of life and this experiment in self-government. We are so lucky because the worst day in America is better than any day anywhere else.
Absolutely. You think people in Syria are worrying about what bathroom to use?
Or where they can get toilet paper? They use their hand.
Right.
The point is that
things aren't so bad, right?
One of the main spiritually suicidal embarrassments today is that Americans are so spoiled because the worst day is so good. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't have $5.20 for gas. We're going to the movies tonight. Nobody's changed their lifestyle.
Yeah. Uber Eats got my order wrong. Yeah.
Get that middle finger. Be the great white buffalo. You didn't have to go to boot camp to be a Green Beret, to be a force to reckon with. God gave you everything you need. Thank you guys and all your fellow warriors for providing me this defiance. I love my defiance. I love my critical thinking. I'm suspicious of everything. I don't believe anything until I have undeniable evidence to support a claim or a presumption. Until I have the evidence, it's merely a claim and a presumption. And no bureaucrat can tell me I can't keep and bear arms on earth. There are no areas where a man can tell me, well, you can defend yourself, but not over here. Eat shit and die. You don't have the authority. I have the authority. You can't tell me I can't spill corn on my property in Michigan. You don't have that authority. You can't call a mourning dove a songbird. It's a fucking game bird. And I am Rosa Parks, and that is a black ass. That is a seat on a bus. I will choose what seat I put my ass on. I'm a free man. I'm Rosa Parks with a guitar and a Glock and a middle finger, and it's on fire. Be defiant. Be polite. Be cute. Be clever. Be pleasant, but be firm. And be firm with your mayor and your senator and your congressman and your governor. And tell them you know that our government is committing treason by the hour, orchestrating an invasion of our country. That's treason. They're welcoming the importation of chemical warfare in the form of fentanyl and methamphetamines. Our government is welcoming them. Yeah, the Border Patrol does as good a job as they're allowed to, but they're not allowed to have real rules of engagement to secure our borders. That's the government's hand. So it is treacherous, but be resilient, have faith, be clean and sober so you're as strong as you can possibly be, to be as defiant as you can possibly be, but be defiant on the side of truth, logic, and common sense. And I don't have to explain that to anybody. Well, there are a few people out there. These guys that are wearing Che Guevara shirts, I try to tell them, Che would have killed you. Do you have a Charles Manson shirt you could wear, or a Hitler? People have lost their minds. So when you see people in your life, your family, your friends, people at church and school, your coworkers, down at the gun range, at the barbecue, wherever you may be hanging out, if someone's really stupid, don't walk away. Keep a smile on your face and confront them. Hey, that's really stupid. You're lying. Trump was not a bad man. He secured the borders. That's good. He had the lowest unemployment in the history of America. This is good. He renegotiated all the global contracts to benefit your paycheck, to benefit your freedom. This is good. The guy that accomplished an illegal election in 2020, this guy who can't form a sentence, the Ozzy Osbourne of politics. I love Ozzy. I hate to even drag Ozzy down because Ozzy is a good man. Ozzy wouldn't do any of the horrible things that Joe Biden is doing. Resilience, faith, tenacity, sobriety. I think that's the takeaway from here today. Happy opening day of turkey season. I shot one right in the head with my trusty Matthews bow and arrow.
True story.
The Thunder Chicken has landed. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend with your family and friends. Be strong, but don't accept stupid. Don't have to scream at them. When your family says that Joe Biden is better than Donald Trump, you don't have to scream at them, but you have to make it perfectly clear that you've made a horrible mistake, that you have allowed a man committing treason every day to think he's the commander-in-chief, dictating rules of engagement, claiming that transgenderism is more important than a secure border. And I could go on and on, but it's so painful. Happy April 2nd, 20 Clusterfuck 22. My buddy Greg Stubbe, John Wayne Walding, and all those dedicated heroes and warriors of the U.S. military and their families who have made great sacrifices, taken untold risks so that we can wake up with remnants of a constitutional republic, because we're only in the remnant stage right now. Let me finish by asking you guys, and it's been very positive. Thank you for your wisdom and your insight. But Greg, as a guy who made a pledge to God, I swear to God, when you took your sacred oath to the U.S. Constitution, what do you feel when you see that your commander-in-chief is violating that oath? That's a hard question, but your commander-in-chief is violating the oath that your buddies died for. Is there anything worse? Is there anything worse than that? Your buddies died for that oath, and your commander-in-chief is violating it. Isn't he?
Yes, I've seen a lot of principles violated lately. A lot of leadership has been absent. I've been upset about it, but at the same time, I can't throw a tantrum and act like it's about me. When you make a precipitous withdrawal from Afghanistan and you leave people to die and be killed, those are the people that are going through something. And I don't need to act like the victim. I just need to provide the best logic, the best honor and values I can in my environment to impact people around around me. And that's how we build and maintain a culture, is by being our best each day. Not as hateful towards Biden as we are good about ourselves and those around us.
Well, I respect that, but I have taken the path of spotlighting cockroaches.
We know.
And when Old Yeller brings me the newspaper in my slippers, I give him a biscuit. When he's foaming at the mouth, and I'm not recommending to any human being, I'm recommending that good begets good. And the most important lesson today is that we know our government is treasonous. They're dangerous. They're not doing good for America or the world. We need to vote in constitutionalists. The oath to the Constitution is the pillar of this experiment in self-government.
And we have to vote.
We have to vote. HunterNation.org. I'm going to say it. Please go to HunterNation.org. We're the clearinghouse, the command center for God, family, country, Constitution, Bill of Rights, 10 Commandments, Golden Rule, work ethic, law and order. Not the orchestration of an explosion in violent crime where the Democrats are unleashing carjackers and rapists and child molesters, child rapists, child sex traffickers, murderers and stabbers and shooters. They're releasing them into our neighborhoods. So speak up. Faith means that you have faith that good will overcome evil. And there's so much evil out there that don't let it eat away at you. Face that storm, but you have to vote. Well, my vote didn't count. Well, in many cases, the vote didn't count because you didn't vote in too many instances. So let's go to HunterNation.org and make sure that we're part of a conservative army, boots on the ground in all 50 states, and that we vote those core values that has provided the greatest quality of life in the history of the world, and that these guys almost made the ultimate sacrifice, and they watched their buddies give the ultimate sacrifice for that oath. That's what that was.
For the principles, and Ted, if you don't mind, when you're on the back 40 and you're in a hunting stand, it's easy to assess the personalities in office and be upset about personalities. But it's not personality that comes on your property, it's policy. And so
from those personalities.
And so the policies that come forth is what we ought to be concerned about. And if
who
you're not
creates
voting,
them?
if you're not voting, you have no say. And
if you're complaining but you don't vote, you're the enemy thanks you. The people against your beliefs consider you a team member if you don't vote those principles. So I'm not going to recommend who to vote for, but if you vote for God, family, country, Constitution, Bill of Rights, law and order, I know who that doesn't describe.
Right. Oops. Well, to answer your question, whenever you ask, how does that make you feel, to see the president do what he did in Afghanistan, or how does that make you feel to see the environment we're in today? Feelings doesn't matter. Action does.
Action.
So that's how. Whenever, just like when I lost my leg, or he had, his challenge. What did we say we did? We went to work. That's what we need to do today.
And Americans
Americans need to dig their heels, lean forward, and fight hard, and go to work. Right? Be the change you want to be. Be the unifying. We don't need the divisiveness. Right? We need to stand firm in our beliefs, but also have the unity to know that just because I disagree with you, I can still love you because we're American.
Sure.
Right? Sure. And that's how we come together.
That's hard these days.
Yeah, right. Policy's not going to bring us back together. People are.
Yeah.
And we got to remember that.
But so many people don't know. We've got a generation now that's not only a different generation, and we can call them millennials and put a label on them, but now we've got a couple of years of COVID culture where no one's going to work in person, and they're working remotely. So you don't have examples of a work ethic. You don't have a role model in a line of work. And now the gap is even bigger. Our challenge is even bigger for the future to bring the new generation up to where we want them to be.
Mm-hmm. All right. Ted Nugent Spirit Campfire, John Wayne Walding, Greg Stubbe. I think we represent the heart and soul of the best out there. So dig in. faith, tenacity, Constitution, the American dream. I've never heard of the Spanish dream. I've never heard of the English dream. I haven't heard of the German dream because they're not experiments in self-government. Name me the best rock and roll song written by a German. You have to be a free, defiant, fire-breathing, independent son of a bitch to be Chuck Berry or Chuck Berry's children. Now, I know that there's a lot of European bands that play great rock and roll because the Americans showed them how. So thank you for celebrating the Spirit Campfire. Thank you, Rocco, for helping out. Vicki, thanks for being here. You've been an inspiration looking over there. Shemaine, wonderful. Have a wonderful weekend. Kill many turkeys. Thunder chickens are delicious and exciting and almost omniscient. If you can get an arrow into a thunder chicken, you might be a Green Beret in the civilian community. Live it up, everybody. I love you so much it hurts.